Delaware County Board of Supervisors Organizational Strategic Plan meeting into order. Please take the roll.
Supervisor Starkey?
Here.
Supervisor Howard?
Here.
Supervisor Borges?
I'm here.
Chair Wilson?
Here.
I'll make note
here.
that Supervisor Short is absent.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For this particular planning meeting, we are waiving any time limits. So please be cognizant of your comments. Please take the time that you need to detail out what but please don't waste other people's time. Don't drag on if you don't need to. Speaking to that, I have some brief opening comments, and that is we bring this planning session into fruition, and this is something that I've been working on, and staff has worked on, and board has supported this process starting, and we're very pleased to get it going. Government is designed, and many of our departments are siloed, and their focus is internal. They focus on their responsibilities and duties, and it is built that way by design. But in doing so, we sometimes then do not have an overarching vision, where the county should go, what our plan overall should be. And that is the duty of the board. We have elected officials, and those officials, whether they be the sheriff, the auditor, the clerk, they too have individual responsibilities, and their oversight is for their particular department. And so their vested interest is also in that particular department by design. They are also held accountable and responsible to the voters, unlike department heads that are accountable and hired by the board. In this design, the county has too long been a rudderless ship. It has gone on, and the individual departments' oversight has held us and let us go forward effectively, but not necessarily as effectively or as efficiently as we could. This planning session is the beginning of that process to put a rudder on this ship so that we not only have and can be more efficient and effective as we go forward, but have a direction, a heading. We have plotted a course, and that course will be decided by those on this board that you've elected, but also by those of you that have come and have shown up and have been part of this process today in the public session. And so I look forward very much so to hearing what you bring, your interest, your concerns, and your hopes for the community as we go forward. And for that, I thank you ahead of time and look forward to listening to what you bring. And that is the close of my comments. Any other comments by any of the board members before we get started? Seeing none, then we'll introduce, please, Don Ashton. He is our facilitator for this process, bringing this strategic plan forward. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Thank you again for having me, and thanks everyone for coming out today. We get the PowerPoint called up. So before we get into the PowerPoint, I just wanted to say I've spent now the past 48 hours here in Del Norte, the past day and a half talking to you individually, as well as most of your department leadership team. And my primary goal of today is to talk about why should we do a strategic plan? What are the benefits of it? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for your staff who are already overwhelmed and buried. But there's a lot of benefits that can come out of the strategic planning efforts, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But I just want to share a couple of my observations from what I've seen over the past 36 to 48 hours. And there's no doubt Del Norte has its challenges. But I will say that every county government has its challenges for very similar reasons, especially rural county governments. Many of the same issues. So what you're struggling with is not unique. It's not a reflection on any one of you or any one of your staff. It's just the nature of the jobs that we have. what struck me the most, and I shared this with your CAO and your assistant CAO, is just the banter, the conversation, the attitude. You have a very strong leadership team here in Del Norte County, and you should be proud of that. Many counties do not. They struggle in those areas. So you have a very strong team that, in my opinion, is ready for these conversations. There's some counties I've worked with that they want to do strategic planning, and we advise them, you can't do strategic planning right now because you guys can't even get in the same room and talk to each other. That is not Del Norte at all. You're in a great place. So again, as I said Tuesday, I commend you for moving forward in this direction, and I think you're ready, and I'm excited for what this opportunity can bring to you and your community. So with that, I will jump right in. I don't know how Del Norte typically does these things with consultants and presentations, but if you have questions along the way, I'm fine with you asking me and interrupting. No reason to wait till the end, but whatever you guys prefer, obviously will work for me. So as I said, why should an organization do a strategic plan? Whether it's a public sector organization, a private sector, or a nonprofit organization, they all have to have a vision. They all have to know where they're going. As the chair said, you've been rudderless for a while. And what's that saying? That's saying that if everything's a priority, then nothing's a priority. And that's where counties see themselves get into, because you have so many issues coming up, and without some guidance, without some priorities, no one knows what to do and when to do it and how quickly to get it done. And that's a disservice to you as the elected board, it's a disservice to your staff, and it's a disservice to the community. So if a strategic plan is done well, you will see that it makes the public aware, most importantly the public aware of what your priorities are and what you want to accomplish over specified periods of time. So it increases transparency, which is something you hear across governments all the time, is how do we become more transparent. It makes your staff aware of what your priorities are. Your staff come to work every day, and most of them probably have a plan of what they want to do that day. And the first 30 minutes, those plans get thrown out the window and they're reacting to something else. Having a strategic plan in place helps let them know where they're supposed to go and where they're supposed to focus their attention. So it will make them more efficient, make them more successful as well. A strategic plan provides continuity during leadership changes. That is one of the most important things that I see out of it, whether it's a leadership change in a department head or leadership changes on the board due to election cycles and things like that. It's continuity, so you can actually get some things accomplished. Most things that your staff are dealing with don't get accomplished in a day or two. Many of them take several years. And if those priorities are always changing, nothing ever gets done. And obviously that creates frustration. So that continuity is helpful. It doesn't mean things won't change. It doesn't mean a new board member won't come in and get 2 more votes and say we want to do something else instead, but at least it provides an avenue for a conversation that if the board wants something changed or wants something added to the plan or the priorities, you have a conversation with your CAO's office and your leadership team, and you say, well, what do we need to do to get this new thing done? And the conversation from your CAO will probably go something like, well, if you want that done right this minute, or right now, or soon, I either need more resources, or you need to take something off the plan. You can't just continue to pile work onto your staff. It's simply not sustainable. And one of the primary, I think the main point I heard in talking to your leadership team is your vacancy rates and how to recruit and retain staff. Well, one way you retain staff is you don't burn them out. But that's hard when you're getting hit from your constituents of wanting everything done. So trying to find that balance is critical, and a strategic plan helps in that regard. And then the 2 other reasons, and there's probably many more reasons, these are my big 5. It reduces potential wasted resources, and it creates opportunity for increased efficiency. Because it allows your staff to understand where they're focusing their efforts, and it also breaks down the silos that you were talking about, Chair. And I thought you said that very well, is government by design forces people to silos. Primarily that's because of how the funding works. Funding comes in for behavior health and for public health and for social services. And that's all state and federal funding. Then you have your general fund, which is true discretionary, that funds your departments like your sheriff's office and your probation department. But due to legislative changes over the past 10 to 15 years, the relationship and the nexus and the overlap between for example, your sheriff's office and your probation department with your health and human services programs, they have, if they're not working together almost daily, it's a dysfunctional organization. And I have not seen that here at all. But I have seen it in other places. A strategic plan helps break down those silos and gets people all working on the same page and talking to each other and figuring out how to best move forward as an organization versus a department. And that does not mean that your department should not be advocating for their needs. They should. It makes your CAO's job harder, makes your job harder, but you want them advocating for their needs. But you also want them thinking as a system, and a strategic plan helps in those efforts. What else does a strategic plan help with? Well, it helps in providing guidance to your CAO's office in preparing the budget recommendations, because now your CAO knows what the board's priorities are, not necessarily what each of your individual priorities are, because many times those are different. But as a board, your CAO will now know this is what is the priority of the board, and when funding requests come in, they can look at the strategic plan and say, is this consistent with the plan? If it's not, maybe it gets pushed to the bottom of the list. Not suggesting it's not important, but it's just not the same level of priority to be addressed during that year. So it helps with the budget recommendations, and it helps you in approving your budget. Because again, it's your roadmap, it's your plan of how to move forward. It also allows you to be more future focused versus reactive. Local government gets criticized all the time for being too reactive. And guess what? We are. You're reacting to storms, you're reacting to natural disasters, you're reacting to state and legislative changes, or state legislative changes that you have no control over. But as a county, you're mandated by law to follow what the state tells you to do. So, and sometimes you're reacting to those. California typically has hundreds of pieces of legislation that get introduced every year, thousands maybe. Not all of it gets approved, but at some level you're looking at that to try to anticipate what's coming, because that impacts what you can do. And in many times, mandates that come from the state either are not funded, or they are funded, but they're not funded to the level you need to be truly successful. And then that impacts your discretionary resources. So having a plan and moving all those forward, it's helpful in that way. And as I mentioned, it helps reduce the silo thinking. Doesn't eliminate it, but it helps reduce it. And then it creates opportunities for system-wide thinking. And that's important. It's important for your department heads. It's critical for your CAO and you for the system-wide approach. The way I've always described it, it's a closed system. You have a set number of dollars to do certain things. If you want to fund one thing, you're usually taking it from somewhere else. And if those decisions have a system-wide impact. If you hire, or something that happens in the sheriff's office, the sheriff can't hire staff, which we heard a lot. None of your departments can hire staff. Every department has significant vacancies. But let's talk about the relationship between a sheriff's deputy and a child welfare worker. And a child welfare worker going to someone's home to do an investigation of child abuse, you don't know what they're getting into. Sometimes they need support of law enforcement. Well, if you cut one of those areas, how does that system work? The system is impacted. And examples like that go on and on. Another example, it came up in some of the conversations we had, and I've seen it in other jurisdictions, one that I worked in, during budget cuts. Do you cut animal control officers? Well, what's the impact of that? My initial thought when I went through it a few years ago, yeah, we don't have to have that animal control officer. That'll save some money, help me present a balanced budget. But then when I talked to the sheriff to see how would that impact his office, he said, don't cut that, because if you cut that animal control officer, A deputy will then be responding to the wandering cow in the street. That's a real example of a county I worked in. Has it happened here? I don't know, but could it? Absolutely. So that system-wide thinking is probably the most important point I would ask you guys to take away from all these efforts. So what makes up a strategic plan? And this is pretty standard, whether it's a public sector strategic plan, a private sector, or a nonprofit sector. They always include a vision, mission, and values. They include focus areas, goals, and actions. I will share vision, mission, and values is a terminology that's used in almost everything. Focus areas, goals, and actions, different words get used, but the points are all the same. Where we are in this process right now, it is the very beginning. It's trying to gather information so then staff can present a vision, mission, and values and focus areas to you all. And from there, once those are approved, you start building out the goals and the action items and the things you want to accomplish. The last piece on there, and I went back and forth with whether I should put that on there, state mandates and legislation. A lot of jurisdictions don't like hearing that, but at the end of the day, it's a reality. And whether it's prison realignment, Prop 47, juvenile justice realignment, public health realignment, those are words the public probably hasn't heard what realignment is. In my words, what it is, it's the state saying, we don't want to do this anymore, so we're going to give it to counties under the auspices of local control is better, which I agree, local control is better, but if it doesn't come with the funding to do it well, you're struggling, and now you're the ones hearing about it because you're the face of your community, and that happens all the time. So my opinion, state mandates and legislation needs to be part of the strategic plan because it will take your resources from other things you may want done. Question that comes up all the time, how long is a strategic plan valid? That's a hard one to answer because if it's done well, it's always evolving and always changing. Typically, I advise you can't plan for more than 4 to 5 years out. Quite frankly, in the environment we've had the past few years with pandemics and things such as that, you couldn't plan 6 months out. It was very challenging. But 4 to 5 years, if you see a strategic plan that's 10 years out, I'm going to suggest it's throwing a dart at a dartboard because you don't know what's coming. What I think is most important, though, is once you develop your plan, that it's updated at least annually, not major efforts, not bringing a consultant or an advisor to help do it, but to have a conversation with the board to say, is these still your priorities? Some things may fall off because you thought they were a priority and something changed and they didn't. Other things would be added, but have those updates. And I would suggest having them sometime before the budget cycle starts so your CAO and your staff know what your priorities are for that upcoming year. Also included in the annual updates is progress reports that are provided to you, to the board, and to the community to say, how are you doing in addressing these things? It can be used as an accountability document as well for everyone, or for your government to be more accountable to your community if it's done well. But those regular progress reports have to happen. What that will look like, we don't know yet. We're figuring it. Randy and I have brainstormed some ideas, but it could look a number of different ways. It could be quarterly reports from different focus areas. It could be an all-day workshop from different focus areas. You know, it could be as simple as putting something in your board staff reports to say, how does this recommendation tie to the strategic plan? And sometimes it won't, and many times it should. Those are ways you can embed the strategic plan into the culture of your organization, and that's when it will be successful. So what is success and failure with the strategic plan? I'm going to start with the bad, because I think almost all of us have probably been in the situation where you spend all this time, resources, and money in developing a strategic plan, and then it sits on a shelf and no one looks at it again. Obviously, that's a huge failure, And if that happens, then it likely prevents conversations of strategic plans from happening in the future, because people remember what a waste of time it was before, and they don't want to engage. So that's the biggest failure. The successes, if it's done well, you get buy-in from your organization, you get buy-in from your community. It becomes part of your culture. It's how you operate from. It's what you operate from. It evolves over time, because it needs to. And then most importantly, it allows you to measure how you're doing. Now, I want to be careful that you can't start measuring everything, or you're going to be hiring more staff to do all the measurements. But it allows you to know what you've accomplished and what you haven't. And again, finding that balance between how much investment you want to put into measuring things. The phrase I've heard a lot in this county, probably more so in this county than any county I've worked with, is return on investment. What are you getting out of what you put into it? Whether it's from Tuesday's board discussion about giving money to the Film Commission, to just your staff investing their time into doing something, what's that return? So another reason why I think Del Norte is ready for this next step, because your thought processes are all there. So that's what success looks like. You achieve the buy-in, it becomes part of your culture, and you're allowed to measure results. So where are we now, and where are we going? Well, we're really finishing up this week is really the project kickoff. I'm going to suggest that from Randy's perspective, the kickoff happened probably a few months ago. He's been working extremely hard, and great to work with in these efforts. But this is a formal kickoff. The primary thing today is talk about why do a strategic plan. But more important, we want to hear from the public of what their priorities and what they think the county should focus on. As we told your department heads yesterday, and I'll share this with the public, not everything can get in the strategic plan. If your strategic plan is 20, 30 pages with all kinds of stuff, it's to get on the shelf, because it's too much. It has to be something that's manageable. So there will be things that either your department heads bring up, the public brings up, that are important. No one's suggesting they're not important. Does it rise to your immediate needs and priorities of something that can be accomplished right away? That will ultimately be your decision to make. But for people of the public or your department heads, if you bring something up that doesn't make it into the plan, that doesn't mean it's being disregarded. It may mean it just can't happen right this minute. So no one take it personally if something you brought up doesn't make the cut, so to speak. So then in March, we want to ask the board to approve the vision, mission, and the goals and the focus areas. That's a March 12th meeting. Then April 9th, have a draft plan to you for review and input and consideration. And then by April 23rd, bring back I say the final strategic plan. That's a little misnomer, because it's never final. It's always changing, as I've discussed. But that will be your plan for the next year. When Randy and the county sent out the solicitation, and I looked at the time frame, I'm to be honest with you, extremely aggressive. It is. We're going to get there, mostly because of your staff's efforts. But extremely aggressive. But remember, it will change. Things will be added to it. It's not done. This will not be your only chance. Why do we do strategic planning before the budget? I think a lot of people ask that question. Is because, as I said on one of the first slides, it guides your CAO, guides your staff, and gives you some guidance in what to approve in that budget. It'd be very difficult to approve a budget if every single person has different priorities and it's all over the place. And quite frankly, it's just not as effective. So that's the timeline we have. I think we're on schedule to meet that. The last thing I'll share, I'm going to share this because I'm a little envious. The Clear Plans tool that Del Norte purchased to build the strategic plan. It's an outward-facing tool. Probably no one in the public has seen it. I don't know if you've seen it. There seems to be a ton of potential to increase transparency and accountability with that tool. So kudos to you and your staff for picking that tool. It's relatively new, if not brand new. But I think there's a lot of upside to that could really help bring transparency and trust to the process. So that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. The majority today is to get input from the public. I'll be taking notes. I'm assuming Randy will as well, to gather the information, and then we'll go from there. Any questions for me?
I just want to say I'm super excited that you're here and that you laid it out so beautifully for us to understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, thank you.
All right.
So I'd like to open it up for statements, comments by the public. Again, we have waived the time limit, so please feel free to give us all your opinions and thoughts on your issues that you're bringing forward about the strategic plan and about where you hope Delaware County can go. Don't be shy. It's okay.
Chair, would it be okay for me to kick it off with some discussions I had yesterday with somebody that couldn't attend today? That might be kick it off so everybody kind of gets comfortable knowing what to present.
Seeing nobody jumping up.
Well, I'll get the ball rolling, and then you guys can decide if you want to get going. So I had talks yesterday with a real estate agent and a developer. And some of the things that they would like to see come forward is they wanted to first commend the CDD for the improvements and the streamlining that's occurred over the last 6 to 8 months. But one of the things that they would love to see is some, like a gold standard of customer service, meaning that when they walked in the door to the time that their project was finished, they had that consistency with staff so that they knew exactly that they met with, Joe, and Joe walked them through the whole process instead of meeting with Joe and then Joe handing them off to Karen, and you know what I mean? So they wanted to see some of that consistency, some of that ability for like maybe a website with the frequently asked questions to kind of guide them and direct them where to go. Their examples were that sometimes they would go in there and they would say, yes, you need to put sidewalk in, and 6 months later they would go in there and they said, we don't know who told you that, you don't need to. And I don't have the specific examples, I was just talking. Packets, an online packet to kind of guide them through where they could go in order to make sure that development is moving forward and going. They would love, like I said, to be assigned a planner to help them through the whole process. They really would love more engineers that would help with the development process up front. And the last thing that they were really hoping for is more city utilities going to the outlying areas. So they want to do a development, let's say at the end of Parkway Drive, and they wanted that city utilities, if we could work closer with the city to try and come up with funding to get the water and the sewer out to those outlying areas. So those were the feedback that I got.
This would be a dream, Brandon. It's like no time limit.
Oh, time. No.
It's like, go for it. I'm excited for you.
I'm sorry that you feel like I'm being disruptive or I'm being confrontational. My main interest is the community, and that's why I'm here. I want to see the best for our community. I think we have a ton of untapped potential everywhere you look, and we just see more businesses closing and more state mandates, and that's the only reason that and Dr. Stutz is the main reason I got involved. But yes, thank you, each of you, for dedicating your time and your efforts to this board and trying to make our community better. We need leadership to get engaged, and I continue to have you meet your expectations and realize your potential. You guys have a lot you can do without being mandated by the state, and I think that would benefit the community most. I'm a builder, and I build by plan, so I like having a strategic plan. You know where you're going, you know what you're going to do. So I appreciate that. And the process. You guys just put in the Brown Act into your administration manual, which was great, good improvement. But then we're sitting here, and this agenda wasn't on the website. And you have, some 45 committees? And those meetings aren't published. And those agendas aren't published. And I'm wondering why that is. For the community, I think we do need to address vacation rentals. I think it's leading to homelessness and a crazy real estate market. You look at values, they're all over the place. And it's definitely driving homelessness. So to have homelessness conversation without talking about our property values is disheartening. I was wondering if there's, any conversations about making a tax exempt proposal for businesses coming into the area. I'd like to see a youth facility, some kind through the recreation department. We keep dealing with the consequences, but we need to start dealing with some of the circumstances and give kids opportunities to get engaged before there's problems. And lastly, I work at the state institution in infrastructure, and for the first time since the state opened the prison, my department's being cut funding. And just wondering if you heard any word what's going to happen with Pelican Bay, and if you have any contingency on if they close. Thank you.
Chair, just for the record, that agenda was posted on our website last Friday.
Thank
So-
you. And some of your feedback just on your comments is that we have recovered quite a bit on our youth programs since the rapid decline because of COVID. So we had over 800 kids in our basketball program this time around, and we're seeing upticks in all of our youth-based activities, which is good. A good sign. It's good to see, the input and bringing the kids in and being able to add those to that process and program that we've had some good help in rejuvenating this year, and that it is all part of what we're hoping to continue to be able to move forward with.
There's always room for improvement.
Yeah. Robert?
I was excited to see the strategic plan, the idea come forward. Randy Hooper had been working on it. It's kind of cool because I see you guys skip out on the budget hearings. And I think the budget hearing has to be part of that. Every year we have to have a chance to look at a pie chart and kind of see where things have went and growth and whatnot as the public. It can't just be a stack of documents held up. The other day you guys did one item where there were several items on it that included a report for the mid-year general fund, and it wasn't really discussed at all. And so that's supposed to be the public's chance there, and I don't think the public was really aware that that was happening. I would wonder if some of you knew it was happening, but you had a whole bunch of board reports that could have been discussed, then. And these are all, items in business that you bring into play, revenue, cost, things like that, And you see your collections department brought in like $1,200, and how to, so you wonder, these are areas we can, just from a business perspective, make improvements. The previous commenter mentioned short-term rentals. I agree with him, and also you guys should probably use that technology to book out like Florence Keller and your enterprise funds, and maybe take it away. Currently they really are, most of them probably illegal because it requires a use permit in most zonings in the county, and probably most of them haven't gotten a use permit. A lot of them have business licenses for an apartment, and they have occupancy tax accounts, but they haven't actually followed county code to pull a guest lodging use permit. The healthcare district, we have a building built there that was meant to attract primary care providers. They have no dentist, very well staffed with people that can't provide healthcare, and an empty lobby, and that building was built and is rented by our healthcare district. They met Tuesday night, and the new CEO from Sutter showed up, and now 2 members from Sutter are now back there. And I'm thinking we get them all together to start talking about what the plan is to attract physicians. It's obviously their job to employ them. We might have to put a little skin in the game with some sort of figuring out incentives, how we're going to do it. It's a big discussion. You can't advertise in medical journals, so you can't put a redwood picture and try to attract, they're not subscription based. And so that'll be something that has to be, that's kind of, and they've agreed to put that on the agenda with the healthcare district as of Tuesday night to re-involve themselves and working with Open Door, our biggest players, Sutter and whatnot, and attracting primary care providers. Transparency, the agenda was posted. I'm sure I caught the agenda was posted, but it is confusing because there's several places to look. And so sometimes we don't have, I guess, an API key. And I hear, our facilitator mentions that we have some sort of technology that may be supposed to improve transparency. I'm not sure if that's being used. But something like an API key that would get everything to everybody's, so when the city puts something up, that goes to your shared website. So, so we're all, that's the way I did it when I was selling cannabis, was everything was tied to my point of sale system, and then an API key to like Leafly and Weed Maps, so people could order on Leafly and Weed Maps. It would go to my point of, all the information just trades freely once it's put in one spot, because otherwise, you'll look at several calendars on the website, and some will post some meetings and some will post others. And if you think you found the spot, you might not have. There's one spot where they do tend to, But if you're looking at a calendar at a certain, it can be confusing to understand if a meeting is happening today. And general transparency, the healthcare district's not aware that they need to physically post their agenda, so I brought that up to them. But they're really good about posting it online. Other boards and commissions that have websites and are required to post online sometimes don't have the current agenda button at the top. The county's gotten a lot better about posting the agendas out front with 4 pins. They're all neatly posted now, but I think that all needs to continue on so the public can be aware. And so that as we make a strategic plan, we have really valuable data from our budget and things like that to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for providing this time to speak. Nothing screams attention in my ears than the word strategic. It's a Greek word, and it represents military action. So I'm wondering how much attention you're going to give to this plan. Also, to know that there's nothing more strategic and more military in this county than Point St. George. It offered the best listening area for World War II, and I'm living that daily for 40 years. Now, when nothing happens to an area that has this great military background and is left abandoned to only very, very few. And that area not only represents my home, it represents the Tolowa peoples. It represents the lighthouse. It represents the parks of California. It represents the fish and wildlife. It represents so many things, and nothing to this day has been said about this area. You might want to write this down, PSG, I'm going to repeat that, PSG, Surfer M at YouTube. This is a very credible and very jaw-dropping website of what's happening and what is not happening. No one is mentioning, not the newspaper, not the websites or social media, just my own cameras that are viewing from Point St. George. So you might want to write that down and take pay very close attention to what's happening. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Don't be shy. We don't mind. Thank you.
My name name's Carrie. I live in Smith River, and I would just like to address the housing situation here for everybody. And I think we can all agree that people not being able to find housing, affordable housing, is impacting the job market. So you obviously spoke about not being able to retain staff. I think we've seen that through the federal agencies that are here, the local agencies that are here. You just can't find good people because there's nowhere to live that's affordable. So I think, as someone spoke, the Airbnb situation here has probably caused a lot of the issues with the housing that needs to be addressed. My other concern that I'd like to see for Del Norte is the blight situation. You know, you have homes that looking pretty rough, and where is the code enforcement? You know, that affects all of us, affects all the property owners here, it affects our property values. As a tax-paying citizen, I don't want to live next to a crack house, you know? So I think those are my two biggest concerns for the county that I'd like to see addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Oh, thank you.
Say it a few more times.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Amanda Ammon, and I just want to say thank you all so much for having this opportunity. I do have some feedback for youth. We would like to probably see, like, if we could work on getting like a Boys and Girls Club. We have one down in Klamath, and I'm sure that we would be able to kind of partner and get an, what is it called, like an extension, a satellite up here. And also, I was on that behalf, and I know that we're always focusing on the youth. I'd like to also focus on our adults that are at this weird age group. I feel like it's between like 35 and like, I'm gonna go all the way up to 55. But, and kind of these people that have been, are homeless, looking to change careers, not really seeing any goals or use in their lives, to kind of focus on them and maybe providing some kind of PSAs. We're focusing on the youth, but I feel like a lot of times we need to focus on parents too, because not all parents know how to parent, and to have classes takes time, and you're not going to tell me how to parent, but just maybe having like positive PSAs in the newspaper, flyers or billboards, just to put stuff out there to, like, you know, talk respectfully to your kids, to have conversations at dinner time, things like that. Also, the housing is definitely an issue. I live out in Fort Dick, thank goodness, away from a lot of things, and I could have my little miniature homestead. But I see a lot of homeless, and it's sad. I have family members that live in the swamps, and you know, for them to get, we brought up animal control. That's a thing. Also, if we could create some kind of, when we're creating facilities for transitional housing for our people that are trying to get help, if we could think about their animals, and recognize that an emotional support animal is a prescription from a doctor, but they also have rights as a service animal. Now, all the rights, they can't be in, like, you know, they can't go into public areas and food areas like a service animal. But for housing and HUD, they do need to be recognized. It is a crime, actually, you know, that could go to court for not recognizing them. Okay. And then, so homes, jobs, businesses. I've been thinking about this a lot, and for those people that are between like the 30 and 55 range, I don't know how that would look, but to have some kind of, you know, it could just be community outreach, so I'm just putting it out there for anybody that's listening, but maybe come up with like a list of jobs and shops and things that people can do that we don't have, like what we're missing out there, and keep it out there for somebody to be like, oh, I'd like to do that. Like, how do I do that job? Like, I've never heard of it. You know, just how we kind of use that with our kids and creating those pathways to like be a nurse and everything, but kind of have that out there in the open for people, because we may not have the people that have the degrees. If we could try to, back in the old days, we used to have on-the-job training. And I'm a veteran, and a lot of the stuff that I learned in the military was on-the-job training. Like, it was like, hey, we need somebody to do this. And it's like, sure, I could do that, like, no problem. Like, just show me how, you know? And I feel like that could really benefit our communities a lot with our homelessness, our jobs. And I know that we don't have, like, our clothing. It kind of sucks. Like, our options for kid clothing, adult clothing, we get Walmart, you know, or we get the boutiques. I know that we have a few boutiques. I never have time to go in there because I have a 6-year-old boy that likes to run around and touch things. And I know I could be like, don't do that. Keep your hands to yourself. Put them in your pockets. That lasts, but like for not very long because he's very energetic. So I can't go into browse all those things. So creating different spaces and just things like that. And I like what you said about Point St. George. I haven't been able to go out there, but I have looked at it. It's one of my things that I like to do with my son is take him to his lighthouses. But I believe, is it Point St. George that has the helicopter for like $300? The lighthouse for like $300. I'm not going to be able to do that anytime soon. But to be able to have those, maybe, I know gas costs a lot for that helicopter, but I feel like that's an opportunity to bring tourism to help us. And I appreciate your guys' time. Again, I've done a couple strategic planning sessions also, and I'd like to see this to be alive and not on the shelf collecting dust. And I have really great hopes, and I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Norma Williams. I'm actually a county resident as well as a county employee and chapter president of the Delano County Employees Association, SEIU 1021. You all know what I said the other day. That still stands. However, yeah, we definitely need to do something to improve the job market here. Not only I think we should still re-energize our fishing industry. I think we need to take a look at what we can still do to make improvements on that. And I also, in line with what's coming up on Saturday, I really think that we need to have everyone have a seat at the table when it comes to any kind of state or federal projects that will impact our community. I think, and I did mention this, I think last year at one point, when Supervisor Short was chair, that whatever deals we had way back when, this was way before all of your time, with the state and with the feds in terms of our forest lands, we shortchanged ourselves. I don't think that leaders back then had the vision as to what the impact was going to be on us as a growing community. It definitely curtailed our tax base. I think it really hurt us in the end. And quite honestly and quite frankly, I think it basically gave them carte blanche to simply ignore their legal obligation in terms of the PILT funding that they needed, and they were obligated, and I would assume legally obligated, to provide to this community. And that's not just at the feds, it's also at the state level. I wish there was a way that we could legally sue them with interest. That would be a hell of a lot of money. To be honest, I really think that if there's a way that we could do that, I'm all for it. I'm right there with you. You can go to Sacramento or DC to help, well, bang a few heads if need be. I'm good at that, and you know it. But my family does anyway. But seriously, though, I think there should be a way that we should still press that issue. If there was a way that we could legally press that issue, I'm definitely all for that. I think that's something that we should try to pursue. I really do. And again, with anything that they want to have out involving this county, we need to have a seat at the table. We need to make sure that our voices are heard. And that also includes all of the stakeholders. All of the stakeholders that is impacted. Tribal nation, fishing, community business leaders, county leaders, city leaders, labor leaders across the board. I think that we all need to have a seat at that table and have a say as to what's going on. Because I think that's what's always been missing here. And I think it's also been missing when, quite frankly, even city leaders and county leaders, they, shall we say, they listen to us, but then they don't really hear us. And I think that's what has been happening. That, I think, has been a big, big problem all along. In terms of, and like I said, I think we need to really focus on fostering what we have here, bringing industry here as well. We have a lot of wasted property here. A lot of wasted property. Enterprise areas, business areas, they're virtually empty. You've got buildings that are literally rotting, literally disintegrating. And I'm going to say this, and I'm sure the city won't like it, but I don't care, because I am a city resident as well. You've got a downtown that, quite frankly, is a joke. It's not really a viable downtown. You've got a lot of empty buildings there. You've got edifices that are, oh my God. And I do a lot of walking, as everyone knows. I walk a lot, even on the weekends when it's a beautiful day. And when I'm walking, and I do walk around the downtown, going out towards the beachfront area, which is gorgeous, and I love. But when I'm walking down through those buildings, they're awful. They're moldy, they're mildewy. You go inside them, they don't look really good. The edifices are so outdated and so dilapidated. It's an embarrassment. You have local entrepreneurs here that open up shops, but do people really go and buy anything there? No, because there's too few. There's not that many. And we have all these empty buildings and nothing's happening. I see Tab and Associates and I'm thinking, man, they must be making a hell of a lot of money for making sure that there's no business thriving here. That's my impression, by the way. You've got a lot of empty buildings. You've also got, across from the Burger King, that long building there. I go walk by there on my break, and I have to cringe because it looks so out of the 1960s. It doesn't really look appealing. And we have too many thrift stores. Nobody wants that anymore, I can tell you that. But we need to renovate what we have here. I know that's going to cost a lot of money, but we need to make our downtown look appealing. And we need to make sure that we encourage local people to buy there and shop there. I've been in small towns down in the Bay Area, believe it or not, there are some, that have a wonderful, thriving downtown. And in very conservative counties too, by the way. But they're thriving downtowns that I love to walk in, and I'm like, God, I wish Delaware County could do that. I wish Crescent City could do that. In terms of blight, yeah, we definitely need to take a large bite out of that. And that's also with that horrible, what I call horrible dilapidated buildings right across from where the new restaurant's being built. I know that's probably a city problem, but I don't see why the city and the county can't get together and do something about it. It makes us look shabby and tacky. And I, as a business owner or a new incoming business owner, would rather kind of think twice about, really, do I want to build a business when I have that my customers are going to be looking at? Or when people are driving down the 101, they see that as they're heading out of town? Is that the impression that you want to give for this county? So you need to take a look at that as well. In terms of the housing, yeah, it is outrageous. Yes, we have a recruitment problem in terms of jobs here, and that's across the board, whether it be city, county, state. But it costs too much to live here. you go online and you take a look, even for a studio apartment, it's over $1,000, sometimes $1,200. That's ridiculous for a studio apartment. A room in a house, $800. That's ridiculous. And our salaries aren't keeping up with that. Yes, you can have people apply, but they don't stay because sometimes they can't find an apartment or a home or something to live in because they just can't find it. I remember at a new hire orientation, I had a new hire tell me, well, you know, I want to work here. I'm glad I moved here. It's a beautiful area. I really love it. But I'm now having to rent. I'm living out of a hotel in the hopes that in 2 weeks I can find a place to live here. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to say, I'm sorry, Del Norte County, as much as I love to work for you, live here, I can't stay here because I can't live here because I can't find a place. I don't know if that person ever did remain with the county, but that's something that I think the county needs to be aware of as well. You have people that want to move here, that want to work here, but they can't afford it because they can't find a place to live. And yes, that has a lot to do with the vacation rentals. I'm not saying that there are people here who use that, and I understand they use that for additional income. I get that. But some of these people are from out of the area that come here, they buy a piece of property or a home, and then they rent it out. Maybe you should look at that. I'm really, really serious because, again, with those vacation rentals, when it's off-season, yes, they'll rent out at a cheaper rate to those coming in here for jobs, but when the season happens, those rents go up and they're like, bye-bye. And then where are those people supposed to go? Where are they going to find a place to live when, again, they're looking out at literally places where I wouldn't even want to live in? And trust me, I've lived in worse. Even as a county employee, I've lived in worse. And that hasn't been helpful. But I think that's something that you need to take a look at as well. Housing is a major issue, getting jobs here, basically making sure we have a seat at the table when it comes to anything that the state and feds do. Making sure that Del Norte is heard. I've worked with this county, as I said, for 30 years. I've been in the program that I've been in for 28 years. During those 28 years, I have made damn sure that the Department of Healthcare Services knows that there is a county above Humboldt, that the California state line does not end there, and that this county will fight tooth and nail. We make sure that individually and collectively we have a seat at the table and that this county's program for those children are represented and heard. And we may have made, through me, have made differences when it comes to policy in relation to programs and services for our children. But that's what you have to do. You have to make sure that you make your voices heard. We may be a small county, but that doesn't mean that we can't pack a wallop. And I think that we need to be aggressive in doing so. So I'm for this, but you still need to keep county employees in mind. You need to keep labor organizations in mind, but you need to keep our future in mind. We have to move ahead. We have to look ahead. Learn from the mistakes we made in the past, but use those in order to learn and make a better future for ourselves and for our children. And the last thing for that is this. We need to make sure that we keep our youth here. When they leave, they rarely come back. That's because, as I said, there's no jobs here for them. But we spend too much time emphasizing a college education. Not all of our kids that leave the high school are able to do that. Their families can't afford it for one thing, but in terms of scholastically, not all of them, let's face it, not all of us are 4.0 students, advanced students. I really think that we also need to emphasize technical schools. And instead of maybe sending them out, maybe what we should be thinking about is having it established here. Looking at those industries, those technical industries that we can establish here, those technical schools we can establish here and have our youth go to, so that they still can remain here and then contribute. The one thing that I've always enjoyed about this county is the generational aspect of it and that pride that comes with it. And maybe fostering that within our kids in terms of seeing that we invest in them, in their future, in their education, in their opportunity is what we need. So those are things that you should also think about. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the things, because it's been mentioned now twice, and unfortunately, it's the same problem. But I know, because I talked to the unions, the different pipe fitters unions, the electricals unions, and they have apprenticeships that are vacant and sitting there waiting for people to come in. They advertise these things both out of Brookings and here locally. We have electricians unions, plumbers unions, and pipe fitters unions, and they have open apprenticeships, and they cannot get those things filled because they don't have people that are wanting to go into the trades at that apprentice level. And it's unfortunate because those are very valuable, needed, and necessary jobs. And they're here, they're available, they're vacancies there, and they just don't have the people coming to join in at those apprentice levels, which is unfortunate. But if you know anybody, direct them there.
Yeah, is that, so, I'm glad you said that. Is that like, where, do we have?
It's on-job learning. That's what it is. It's
I know what an
yeah.
apprenticeship
Yeah, it's on-job learning. It's exactly what you're talking about.
No, but like where that information is at. Like,
Well, I know it's been
maybe like
it's
they're
been
on the
it's been
website
advertised out of Brookings several times, out of the pipe fitters union.
Mm-hmm.
I know Crescent Electric has apprenticeships, and they've advertised for that here locally. There's been some local plumbers that have apprenticeships, but you'd have to go to them. I know there are a couple of heating businesses that hire at that apprentice level.
Mm-hmm.
Both, I think Frank's does that. I also.
the other one.
Yeah,
But I think that goes right to her point she made earlier.
the craft.
It goes right to her point she made earlier, is a centralized place where all these are, is so people can find them easily, you know.
Well, they're there. I mean, I know of them. I mean, I know the job centers know about them.
Okay.
So, but it's again, just like, our vacancies.
Yeah, and then I
they're
feel
there,
like we
but-
could work with
but you
True
have to have
North and, because they have their navigators and everything in the school system that also work with not only the students, but the families to get that information out and just, telling kids about that, because everybody has their different strengths, like back in.
Well, and a few of the ones that they have had go in and have been successful coming out came from the high school building department, where they were doing building and teaching the kids the craft of home construction, electricity, plumbing, et cetera. And some of the ones that they've had actually successfully go in and are working today in Delaware County came from the apprenticeships that they entered into after high school. But again, unfortunately, there's still left vacancies left for these.
No, I'm glad. I'll look more into that and see if I can help on any of the stuff I'm in. I work with True North, and I work with Promise Neighborhoods, and I work with the Yurok tribe, and I'd really be interested in trying to get more of this out there if it's not already, and trying to figure out a way that we could encourage youth and people to take advantage of these things, because we have the population. And if we have these apprenticeships and everything, I think that's fantastic, and I'm definitely excited to try to help fill in these gaps. Also, I do want to add caveat to the offshore wind development stuff, that it's not good for our natural resources. It's not actually, it's not going to be good. I mean, they were saying oh yeah, we're going to have jobs, but I know not to believe that because of the fact that it takes years to train and they already have their crews.
Yeah, and well, and it's
You
sad.
know,
I
and it's here
I spent
and
yesterday going over the bones of fashion blacksmith, you know, and seeing what can be, you know, used and salvaged out of that business as it's closing its doors. After it, I mean, and year after year after year brought millions of dollars into Delaware County for construction of ships and modifications and outfittings. But unfortunately, you know, and every job that worked out of there was a six-figure job, you know, making and welding skills. But unfortunately, you know, we've lost that commercial business that we had that was very beneficial to our community, because it did bring in so many jobs and work from outside the area coming inside to spend their dollars that were very critical. It had quite the reputation up and down the coast for being an exceptional boat building and modification business. But yeah, we have to do a better job of keeping and retaining, that's for sure.
Yes.
And Nora, I just want to say, nothing we do here is going to be of any benefit if it wasn't for the employees here of Delaware County that do an exceptional job. And it's only because of the quality of those employees that it reflects upon our community as a whole. And so I know for everybody up here, we value what you bring and what you contribute to the county, because without the employees doing the jobs and actually they're committing to that job and committing to the excellence, we would not have a chance to make this plan something that will help us go forward. Because we're not the ones, we're the ones that make eventually decide on what vision to take from what's being said in this room. But whatever happens, it has to be implemented by those that are on the line. And to that, you know, we depend on and notice that what an exceptional job they do. Thank you.
I have one more thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I said I could take as long as I want. No. So also, I would like to also say to tribal consultation at the forefront and not as an afterthought. I just received an email for consultation, and it's like, oh, I heard about that on the Board of Supervisors meeting like 2 months ago. So as I know it's usually where a check in the little box, like, oh, tribal consultation, like, did we reach out? But I just wanted to let you guys know that we are here. I speak for the Yurok tribe, and I know my brothers and sisters and other tribes, we're here as a community, and we want to all work together, and however we could help, however you guys could help us, we always appreciate that. If you could bring us at the forefront to these meetings and everything, it's greatly appreciated.
And that's another thing too that I just wanted to express, because just like what you're saying, that's a two-way street.
Yes.
In that I've been privy to discussions that had we been privy to at the forefront when the program, the dollars or whatever was actually moved towards and gotten, that had we combined our efforts, both as a community, as a county, and a tribe, what we could have done would have been so much more than what was envisioned, because we could have combined our resources. Because most of the time, if you're seeing dollars being allocated to a particular point, concern, similar dollars are being addressed to the county for that same concern. And had more coordination been done at the front, the whole community could have benefited quite a bit more.
Right.
And so, again, just like we need to be more out front with our vision and what we're pursuing, I think that also needs to come back on the other side when those same concerns have to come back from the tribe. When they see an opportunity that could be enhanced by our cooperative work, I think that definitely needs to be done. And we're very open to that. I know that for a fact. So
Definitely, we could add that to our strategic plan.
yeah,
A goal. There's a goal.
write that down.
back up here if need be. Because if you get me on a roll, I'll never stop. That you don't want either. Social media, that's where kids live. If you want to attract our youth, go where they live. And that's on all the platforms, that's where they are. So if you want to send out messages to them in terms of opportunities, apprenticeships, and all of that, that's where you need to go. In terms of higher education, yeah, I've mentioned tech schools, that would be great. I know we have the apprenticeships, but you need to get the word out there so that people know, and that kids know, parents know, regular people know. And even those who want to move up from homelessness and get back on their feet, that also would be a good way of getting the word out, working with Mission Possible and all the stakeholders and making sure that they're aware of it. And even some of our, shall we say, seniors. Just because you may be over 65 doesn't mean you're dead yet. Doesn't mean that you still can't do. Heck, my dad worked all the way up until he was about 85. And that was because they told him, you're too old. And he said, the hell if I am. And they said, too bad, Walter, you got to go. But he did not want to go. And to this day, this man's still working and still keeping active. That's probably where I get it from. But you need to hit the youth where they are. In terms of the employees, I do appreciate your words, I really do. But again, I would say for employees, they're going to say, well, there's actions speak louder than words. We understand that, and we will definitely be dealing with that during contract negotiations and with all of our labor management meetings that we do have with your county administration. But keep in mind, in terms of legislative mandates, state mandates, it's also federal mandates. A lot of your, I would say, non-general fund departments, we do operate oftentimes at the mercy of what comes out and down from the state and the feds. But as I said the other day, it's because they do provide, these programs and services are vital to the community in terms of the health and welfare of this community. And yes, we do have areas of social services that does work with probation when it comes to child welfare, adult protective services. In terms of providing assistance to those here who do need that hand up and that assistance just to keep afloat those on the low income side, very low income side. That's what Medicaid or Medi-Cal is for. That's what the food stamps program is for, and other programs that these families and children qualify for. But you also have to understand one thing, and trust me, I know this full well. A lot of times the state is asking us to do more with less. And that's also because when they expect more, just because they expect more doesn't mean that they allocate more. I'm wanting you to be fully aware of that and fully understand that. I'm sure department heads will let you know that. But from the employee side, that is a reality. They expect us to do more with less. They will and have cut allocations. And that does have a negative impact on staffing and in the services that we provide, the programs that we operate under. So I think you need to also understand that and look to that and really seriously consider that. I know that there's a general fund that's obviously done with taxes and fees and all of that. You may have to make some difficult choices in relation to that when it comes to generating revenue. I don't want to use the evil T word. But yeah, unfortunately, that's oftentimes the only way that you could truly generate the revenue that you need in order to truly provide the public infrastructure and public safety that every community deserves and as you well know, demands. So that's something to keep in mind. Hard choices are going to be made when it comes to public safety and infrastructure. And yes, I know that dreaded T word is something no one likes to hear. I know, and I agree. But at the same time, we have to think about what is in the best interest of our community and still to provide those services so that safety. Because I don't represent them, but I sure as hell don't like knowing that there's only one deputy that operates for an entire county per shift. And some of those shifts last as long as 16 hours. Talk about damn burnout. I know I would basically say, I'm out, can't do that, sorry. But still, it is hard. It is really, really hard. And I think you need to start looking at that as well. But again, be very, I would say, educate yourself fully on what the programs and services are, where the funding comes, and really, really ask the tough questions. Yeah, you'll get something from the department heads, but I really think that you need to actually go down to ground zero, which is the county employee, and get our input. Speak with us directly. And I can tell you that all the surveys that department heads conduct, and even you may conduct, you'll probably not like the answers, but like I said, will you really hear us, or will you just hear us? That's what you have to keep in mind as well. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. I just moved here like a year ago, and I just want to say I love this little town of yours. And whatever you guys did with the homeless people last July and August, that was great. They disappeared. But I think you guys have like the same problems as any big city with the Airbnb, the homelessness. But I think if we keep the focus on drugs and the youth programs during the summer, and I'm all for housing the homeless, but without any drug rehabilitation, it's not gonna. We're just housing them. That's it. We're just storing them. That's it. I follow every entity here in town on Facebook, and there are a lot of jobs. There's a lot of programs, but when I talk to people, for some reason they don't know about it. And I'm like, how do you not, how do you know that? And I'm like, how do you not know? But anyway, I love this little seaside town, but I just think if we focus on the drugs and the rehabilitation, and been a lot of graffiti lately, but other than that, I think it's great, and thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right. Thank you so much for your participation and your words. Bring it back to the board. Is there any final thoughts from the board members before we close this session?
Chair, there's still an item number 6.
Yes, I do know
Okay,
that.
I just
I'm
wanna make
aware.
sure.
I wasn't going to
Just wanna
skip it.
make
I just wanted to kind of seal it up before I gave it to closing comments from Don.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple comments, if you'll grant me some liberty to go off script a little bit. One, really appreciate the comments from the public. I thought they were very fair, reasonable, thought out, and it's so important to hear from the public, because as your staff are, people have said, county employees aren't creative. Not here, that's a general statement. Government employees aren't creative. I'm going to disagree with that, because I think your employees are very creative. Shoot, especially what I'm seeing in Del Norte with the staffing challenges. If they weren't creative, they wouldn't be getting things done. The challenge is if all you're doing is putting out the fires, you don't have time to think creatively or strategically. So that shift is important. I didn't want to share some of the themes we heard over the past 2 days before the public spoke, because I wanted them to come in with their perspectives. That's the other thing to keep in mind. As your CAO or your department heads, they're focused on their day-to-day stuff, they lose, it's not intentional, but they lose perspective of what the community wants. That's not their job. That's your job, to represent your constituents and bring what they want. So hearing from the public is so critical to understand what they're seeing and what they feel they need in the community. Every single department head we spoke to, when I asked, what's your number one priority? It was staffing. Every single one. And as you said, Mr. Chair, if you don't have staff, nothing gets done. We can sit here and talk all we want. If you don't have staff, nothing gets done. The challenge, how do you address that? And we had a lot of conversations about it yesterday. Housing, economic development, jobs, all those things came up with your department leadership team as well. That's a message we're hearing from the public. it also you can't rely on just giving higher salaries. I'm not saying there shouldn't be adjustments to the salaries. I'm just saying Del Norte can't keep up with counties in the Sacramento region. You don't have the tax base. And one of the problems with local government these days is everyone's comparing to everyone else, and it seems like the compensation keeps going higher and higher. And quite frankly, I don't understand how some counties are going to be able to afford the compensation increases they're promising to their staff. And one of the worst things I think could happen is you increase your salary so much and it lets you hire staff, and then an economic downturn comes and you're laying everybody off. So you have to be careful of that. But there's also ways you can recruit and retain people by offering other perks and incentives. And quite frankly, a lot of times it comes down to how your staff are treated. And what I've seen here, your staff are treated very well. But just keep that in mind, how you guys behave on the board, especially if you're looking for department heads and things. Anyone who is well qualified, they're going to watch these meetings. They're going to see how people interact with each other, and if they want to come to this community. Doesn't mean we're going to agree on everything, doesn't mean we're not going to have some very contentious arguments and discussions, but if we're all working towards the same direction, that's what it's about in hearing those perspectives. So staffing was number one, housing, jobs were number two, governance was number three. A third thing we heard, and the other thing we heard a lot of was how to take care of your county infrastructure. And again, that is not unique to Del Norte County. Every small rural county that I know of is struggling with how to maintain their infrastructure. And quite frankly, most counties have not done a good enough job maintaining it. So now you're at a position where you have to build something new, which is more expensive. And how do you pay for that? And construction costs are through the roof. So big issues, big challenges, but I think you guys you all are ready to take those on. And again, I commend you for these efforts. Oh, and sorry, one more thing. There is a poll that was sent out to all your county employees to provide feedback. Randy and I talked about this. We fully recognize sometimes people are scared to do electronic polls. There's a lack of trust and confidence and anonymity. The system is designed, we don't see who's responding from what email or anything. Trust the process a little bit is my ask. Share to all your employees, share what they want to say. Yeah, we may not like hearing it. Your administration office may not like hearing it. You may not like hearing it, but you need to hear it. And this is an opportunity to do that. And maybe we can explore other ways to continue to get input from the employees as well. But that's a start. So to your employees, please take a few minutes to fill that out and be as honest as you can. Because if you don't know what's wrong, you can't fix it.
And to that, if we don't have the information, there's no hope of change.
That's right.
And so, I welcome the criticisms. I welcome the new ideas and disparate thinking on issues, because we need to address those. And we talked about it yesterday. The difficulties that our county may be facing, whether it's the closure of the Pelican Bay over time, or whether it's increased cost. One of our biggest fears is the fact that we have seen a shortfall in $37 billion in the state budget, and now because of lack of tax base coming in, we're now pushing that out to 80 billion, sorry. And all of us that have been in local government long enough to know that when the state has a shortfall, just look out, because it's coming. Whatever they're going to push back down to the counties and make it our responsibility without the compensating us with dollars to match that, it's coming, because they can lighten their load by pushing it back down on our backs. And so those are the issues that this plan, I hope, is forward-thinking, but we have to have those discussions. But I also know that it's only through adversity and adverse times that we grow. That when we rise up to meet difficult challenges is when you as an individual, but you as an organization, can come out better and stronger for it. But you can only do it if you are prepared, and this plan is part of that process. And so I thank you for your facilitation, Randy for all the work, everybody that's had to pick up Neil, Jackie, everybody that's had to pick up and move forward with this, because it is a time-crunched area. But also to all members on this board, thank you for having that vision and standing up and pushing this forward, because without all of us being here and doing that, it wouldn't get done. And so thank you all. And thank you for the public for participating. To that end, we adjourn this meeting. Thank you.